Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga. And today is a glorious day because the very first episode of Dr. Stone has finally hit us, and I am here to give you my first impressions. But before we jump right into it though, just some background on me with this series. I have read and am up to date with the manga, so my perspective on this is very much based on how well it has been adapted to its aimed medium, rather than focusing on things like the core concepts of the series. With that said, I won't be going into any manga spoilers, not this time around anyway, because I feel like for the sake of analyzing the first episode, they're pretty irrelevant actually. So yeah, that's that, and hopping straight into the review, I have to say that I came away from this episode with a renewed love for Dr. Stone. The manga is beautiful and compelling, but seeing it animated has really brought this world to life for me. One of the issues I have with the manga is that the world itself very rarely feels particularly alive to me, but throwing it into an animated medium fixes all of that immediately with wonderfully vibrant color and an immersive atmosphere. Like when Taiju emerged into this world, I felt like we'd stepped into a place full of wonder and discovery just waiting to be made, which is great because that's kind of the core appeal of the series. In fact, I don't know if many of you are Civilization players, but this episode gave me a very similar feeling as to when I start a new game of Civ. You're given absolutely nothing, and then you're charged with helming a civilization through the entirety of human history and beyond. And that is a feeling I love because there's just so much potential, and even though I know exactly what's going to happen next, I still feel that wonder and keenness to continue discovering, which is a great credit to the anime. So this opening into the series primarily focuses on Senku and Taiju, probably Taiju more so really. And yeah, there's a little bit of Yuzahira, but not enough to properly judge her voice work. But the other two are perfect. Senku's voice actor suits this role wonderfully. He just exudes that sort of innate intelligence without coming off as wildly looking down upon you. And Taiju's voice actor has that fantastic brute force energy to his performance that really complements Senku's calm nature. As for the general animation, yeah, it was pretty good. I don't think that it's anything wildly special, but I should say that animation should not be mistaken with art. The art is phenomenal, and I believe it's doing Boichi's work a whole world of justice. I don't think there was a single shot during this episode where I said to myself, that's a bit off, which happens a fair bit with me watching anime, but not here. Most times I was simply in awe of the beautifully crafted world and characters, especially the texture of all the stone people, which to be fair was also amazing in the manga, but I think the anime has truly elevated this element, and I hope that the art stays this consistent in terms of quality for the duration of the season. Back to animation though, I'm worried that some people may take my previous statement as negative, but when I say it's nothing special, I just mean that nothing hugely blew my mind. The best sequence of animation was without a doubt the event, and Taiju being turned into stone in particular. It was great, wonderful work, but it didn't make me go, whoa. On the other hand, there was no animation that made me cringe either. Dr. Stone seems to have struck this wonderful balance where I have no complaints about animation whatsoever, and I love that because it makes it all the more easy to just sit back and get absorbed into the series. And having said all of that, there is an exception to this, the opening, which we were treated to at the end of the episode, and it is a work of art all on its own. It is flawlessly animated with incredibly detailed shapes, textures, and colors that evoke this dimension of endless possibilities. The only thing I'd say is, and I guess this is unavoidable, but I think it's a shame that they had to show the extended cast from the get-go. I say this because I remember when I first started reading Dr. Stone, I really enjoyed the period of time not knowing if we were ever going to see anyone else aside from our two main cast members, and the sense of adventure that came with the gradual discovery of these characters that are all featured in the opening. So people starting Dr. Stone with the anime aren't going to be able to have that because they'll be expecting these mysterious figures to show up one by one rather than experiencing what it's like to be thrown into the true unknown. And look, it's probably not a major issue at all, because at heart, Dr. Stone is about the fantasticness of science rather than hugely character-driven plots and such. So in the end, it probably doesn't matter, and in fact, consider yourselves lucky for glimpsing these future favorites from the get-go. Now, what I will say is that if you came away from this episode feeling somewhat underwhelmed and not entirely on board with Dr. Stone, I get you. I wasn't hugely convinced after reading the first couple of chapters myself. I mean, I did love the general ideas presented, but one of the problems I encountered were the difficulties warming to Senku as our protagonist. Because with this shallow knowledge of him, he came across as a bit of a classic arrogant genius. Not a complete dick, but a standard tropey character, the likes of which don't usually receive a lot of depth in shonen manga. And looking back on those thoughts, I feel like quite the fool, let me tell you. I would like to assure you that Senku is more than capable of helming the series, and it becomes quite easy to identify with him as things go forward. Not only that, but I imagine some people may have problems with the first episode because apart from the event of the entire world turning into stone, it's kind of slow goings, which is very much intentional because we are starting this adventure with literally nothing, and the pacing will reflect that. But it's also going to rapidly pick up because, you know, that's just what science does. Every new discovery makes it infinitely easier to live and paves the way for hundreds of other discoveries, and once you get invested in that engine, Dr. Stone pays your readership, or I guess viewership, off handsomely. Now, of course, being an adaptation, the anime is not a strict one-to-one retelling of the manga. It's pretty damn close, actually, but there are some minor curious differences. For example, in the manga, Taiju finds the statue of Tsukasa before he finds Yuzuru, actually. And if I had to guess as to why the anime decided to take this out and place it a bit later, I'd say it's because it does act as a potential distraction to the wonder and whimsy of the world. And at this point, we'd only really explored 3 characters, so having this random stone dude moment in at that point may not be the best for the overall flow of the narrative. So I think the anime made a definite improvement there. Although there was one moment where I did feel the anime was a bit lacking, and warning, this is a very minor criticism incoming, but it's going to happen anyway. And it's the moment where Taiju sees Senku's work and reveals his treehouse thing. I'm not going to show it here out of fear of being flagged, but in the manga, the camera angle on this shot was much more on the ground looking up rather than at Taiju's head height looking straight forward. And also the treehouse was much closer, and it filled the entire panel, so it appeared to be quite a grand creation. What I don't like with this shot in the anime is that by having it so far away and looking at it from a flat forward angle, it very much diminishes Senku's work by making it look incredibly small and uncreative. It's like Taiju says, "Senku, did you do all this on your own?" And we cut to a crappy tiny treehouse instead of a grand survival palace. And look, once again, I'm aware this is a very minor nitpick, but that's what I do. If I notice these things, they go into the video because why not? And interestingly enough, there was one little scene that was cut entirely from the anime adaptation, which was probably for the best. But in the manga, when everyone is being turned into stone, there's actually a brief 3-panel moment of Donald Trump, or a legally distinct Donald Trump lookalike, in the White House being turned to stone, and he has a brief thought about whether or not this could be the work of terrorists, and that he doesn't want to die, blah blah blah. And I understand why you'd want to take this out, especially in this political climate. And personally, I think you should always keep politics out of my fun science anime, but I just thought it would be interesting to point out. In conclusion, I believe that the first episode of Dr. Stone was a resounding success. It might not have the oomph or the hook from other series openers, but the groundwork is there, as is the potential for greatness. And I am very much looking forward to the rest of this series, and if you are as well, let me know in the comments if Dr. Stone is something you might want to see me review weekly, because I'd be keen to do it, I just haven't quite made up my mind about it yet. But that pretty much does it for my first impressions of Dr. Stone. If you enjoyed this video and the content this channel produces in general, then please do consider donating to the New World Review Patreon, because the support of all of you amazing people is what continues to make this channel possible. And if Patreon isn't quite your style, then please do leave this video a like, share, or subscribe, because it also helps support this channel an incredible amount. And if you'd like to join the fun at any time, then please do head over to my Discord server, where a wide array of shenaniganry takes place on a daily basis. And finally, please do comment with your thoughts on Dr. Stone. This has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.